So Canada has a pretty big problem because the Conservative Party no longer has a moral leg to stand on when it comes to the Communist Party of China and standing up to them, as Erin O'Toole has hired the former VP of Huawei, Jake Enright, to run his sort of research and strategies part of the Conservative Party. So he's brought him, it's called the head of the Conservative War Room, is what they call it, and they're bringing in Huawei's former VP. Now, Huawei is an extension of the Chinese government. This is obvious to anyone who knows anything about how China operates. I mean, there's no billionaire in China that gets that way without direct ties to the CCP. And then even if they are tied and they go against it or they criticize, they tend to disappear. So anyone with significant wealth in China, if it not fully part of the Communist Party, is controlled by the Communist Party. And further evidence to this is when Meng Wanzhou was arrested for sanctions busting, the Chinese then kidnapped 2 Canadians, right? The retaliation. They would not do this for someone they didn't see as one of their own. So all indications point that Huawei is an extension of the Communist Party. Now, Erin O'Toole has been on record saying he's against China, he's against Huawei. And Justin Trudeau has been on record saying he admires China and he loves, how eco-friendly their dictatorship is. That one drives me crazy because it's just a lie. They don't produce any new green technology. China just steals all the green innovations that we make in the West, produces them at a cheaper, lower quality, drives the green energy companies in the West out of business, and then claims to be green, and then all the environmentalists cheer because the environmentalist movement is corrupted by foreign entities anyway. Now, there's an even bigger problem here where the Conservative Party is done as being conservative. It's done. It has died under Erin O'Toole. I raised the red flag over a year ago. It's over. It's no longer conservative. It's, diet liberals. It's even worse, morally compromised by every extremist faction you could find. There is no one with money who can't infiltrate the Conservative Party and make them throw their ideas out the window. Now, I've also raised a big red flag on my other programs of the sort of strategy department of the Conservative Party. And this sort of ties it all together. So he'll be running research and strategy. And I was raising the red flag of how the Conservatives doing research is actually how they destroy their own party. I'll explain. So I've said, if you want to destroy the Conservative Party, if you're out there and you're hardcore PPC or Western separatist and you want to destroy the Conservative Party, give the Conservative Party as much money as you can afford and they will destroy themselves. They are great at shooting themselves in the foot. Here's how they do it. It's through the research and strategies. This is how Hamish Marshall lost Andrew Scheer the election. They rely heavily on data. They're so data-driven and focused. This is also the same reason if you look at Andrew Scheer after he becomes the leader of the Conservative Party. If you notice his speeches before he becomes leader of the Conservative Party, he had this thing called a bit of a personality, and he was a decent orator. And I was like, interesting. Then he becomes a leader, and he instantly sounds exactly like Theresa May, the former Conservative British Prime Minister in the UK. The reason is because they use the exact same sort of focus groups and polling data to sort of build their platforms. And this is a big reason why politicians don't sound like human beings, is because before they go out to the public and try and express what they want to do or get a policy, they filter this through like different questionnaires and focus groups and get the best data, and like this appeals to 72% of the population, so don't say this, don't say this, don't say this. So they have these perfectly curated words, and it just sounds Hillary-ish, like Hill bought 3,000, I am the most qualified woman ever, I am woman, hear me roar, right? So we didn't see Hillary as human, and then Trump came and he was this human being. He was saying things. Some of them might have been ridiculous. But there was no focus group before Trump sent out a tweet, and people found this kind of refreshing. There's another problem, is the strategy and the research that the Conservatives do, a lot of it relies on polling data that is constructed by liberals anyway. So there's inherent bias in a lot of the polling they're using, right? A lot of people's reactions to things is like how it's phrased. Like, are you in favor of like better climate action? Most people say yes. But like, are you in favor of like massive increases on gas to like, no, it's how you phrase it. But, I bring this up all the time, but like, if you look at like the polling data, especially in the environment, right? It always frames liberal policy as good for the environment. So like they say, do you believe we should be doing more for the environment? And this is sort of quantified as anyone who says yes agrees with the carbon tax, right? It's sort of baked into the question that the liberal policies are actually doing what they say they're doing, which is the biggest problem the Conservatives have. Our argument is actually not screw the environment. It's that the carbon tax doesn't do anything for the environment. In fact, it probably hampers the environment going forward because you're killing natural gas and basically elevating ridiculous energies that are propped up by coal, right? Thus increasing our emissions. This is why under Kathleen Wynne's and Dalton McGuinty's Liberals in Ontario, our emissions went up and our prices went up under green energy. Now, these people are constructing Canada's national energy program now. So in 5 years, we're going to get to the Ontario point where we're going to increase prices and we're going to increase emissions, all in the hopes of green energy. So this is the big problem is, like, a lot of the firms that they get their questionnaires and do their research from are sort of controlled by the Liberals to begin with. Now you're putting in Huawei's VP, right? So this guy clearly has no principles. Clearly he doesn't care about genocide. Like, Jake Enright might care about genocide. No, he doesn't. He helped prop up a genocide in the Xinjiang province. This guy does not have principles. This guy does not have, Canadian patriotism. If he did, he would have left Huawei when they kidnapped Canadians. So this guy is not a Canadian guy. He's a political mercenary at best. And this is going to be the guy running the war room. So do you trust the guy who was head of Huawei's to sort of filter out all the biased questions? Or do you think the guy in charge of research might still have some, like, do you think the Chinese government is dumb enough to just say, oh, once you leave us as VP of Huawei, you don't think there's any sort of guarantees? Like, oh, in your next thing, like, you keep doing this. Like, this guy has tens of millions of dollars. Jake Enright has tens of millions of dollars of potential earnings from the Communist Chinese Party if he does exactly what they want, because that's how they operate. And everyone knows this. Erin O'Toole knows this, but Erin O'Toole doesn't care. And the National Telegraph tried to raise the issue of the Communist Party affiliations between Erin O'Toole's campaign. Now, we had to take down the article because they threatened to sue us, and we were afraid that if they went to court, they'd be able to get the name of our source, and then their family would be in danger of being murdered in China. And we just didn't have the money to fight the Conservative Party and the Communist Chinese Party in a massive lawfare battle protracted over years. We had to, but we tried to raise the issue that there's Communist Party affiliations within Erin O'Toole's campaign. We were bringing this up during leadership. A lot of Conservative MPs then, I had MPs have their secretaries call me personally, even though I didn't even write the article or edit it, call me and try and get their names no longer affiliated. And these are the Conservatives who are, like, out in front, like, claiming to be anti-China. But the second we tried to expose the Communist Party, they came after us. So there is no party out there that is against Chinese influence in Canada. Liberals are openly pro-China. Conservatives are secretly pro-China. The NDP is a moral abomination to begin with, so they're probably even too crazy for the Chinese. The best is now Anne-Marie Paul and the Green Party. I mean, under Elizabeth May, they'd be waving the communist flag, but they'd make it green or something. But Anne-Marie Paul actually seems like the most morally centered leader we have right now, and it's ridiculous that you have me who's pretty conservative and, like, to the right of the Conservative Party now, saying the Green Party leader probably has the best moral compass out there. And that's the sad state of Canada, is we're like that. I mean, it's a massive improvement of Elizabeth May, whose domestic policy was trees good, foreign policy, Jews bad. But this is where we're at right now. The Conservative Party, in terms of conservatism, in terms of patriotism, in terms of sort of standing up to the communist menace and authoritarianism, it's done. It's over under Erin O'Toole. There's no moral high ground to stand upon. They have been officially now infiltrated by the Chinese government. And if you believe that Erin O'Toole is going to ban Huawei, I mean, no, he's clearly not. I mean, they've taken the petition down. Erin O'Toole put up a petition to ban Huawei, hires Enright. That's all down. So, I mean, that's the state. I mean, good news, if you have tens of millions of dollars to spare, you can buy Erin O'Toole and force him to do what you want. He's up for sale. So, but for anyone who doesn't have tens of millions of dollars to spare, bad news. Our country is morally compromised, and what do we do? I don't know. Complain on the internet? That seems to be my perspective. We'll see you next week.